Hello YouTube, Dave here again. In the upcoming months, I'm going to be running my first second edition AD&D campaign in over 20 years, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's also going to be the first second edition AD&D game I've ever run where I've actually had at least a bit of an idea of how to actually properly run games. Looking back on some of the earlier experiences that I had as a DM, they were pretty painful, but we all start somewhere. So, nobody begins something as an expert. Not that I consider myself an expert at DMing, but I do like to think that I have at least come along a little bit since 1999. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Between streaming Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition over on Twitch and just the knowledge that the group that I'm currently running stuff for is interested in exploring all of the editions of D&D has got me really excited and kind of nostalgic for second edition. I've never had a really good experience with second edition AD&D through really no fault of the rule set, but it would be really nice to have some actual genuinely pleasant memories of engaging in some second edition AD&D games. So I'm really looking forward to it. And what I wanted to do, just because second edition is one of those editions, kind of like fourth, where it's kind of overlooked for first edition AD&D or basic expert, and then third edition D&D became very popular. Second edition is kind of always felt a little bit more obscure. So I wanted to do some videos over the next little while as I reacquaint myself with the second edition rule set and just go over some of the rules, especially stuff that are alternate rules or optional rules that I do plan on using in my campaign. And there's no real better place to start than with character stat generation, basic character creation stuff. I did do a character creation video in the past during my Goblin test for second edition AD&D where I made a fighter character. But back then I was using the default or the first listed option for character creation, which was how I was handling the characters for all of that series. If there were multiple methods of stat creation available, then I would always take what was the first listed option because as a general rule, that's the one that the game system was by and large designed with in mind. But second edition AD&D actually has 6 different methods for generating your character stats. So we're going to take a look at each of those here today, and we are going to roll up a set of stats using each of the methods. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the various methods that they give here to determine which ones I will and probably will not allow in my D&D game when the time comes to run second edition. So now when I say there are 6 methods for character creation, I can only speak for the 1995 black-covered revision of the core rulebooks. They're generally referred to as 2.5, although personally I'd always heard 2.5 was what was used to describe the Skills and Powers books. But I'm not going to here to split hairs as far as that's concerned. But the black-covered 1995 and beyond versions of the Player's Handbook, as well as this 2013 reprint edition, which is based off of the black-covered Player's Handbook and is available on DM's Guild or Drive-Thru RPG for both PDF and print on demand, as is, I'm just going to say this very quickly, as are the 3.5 2012 reprint versions. They're also available print on demand. So I'm just going to throw that out there because I don't know if I'm going to talk about 3.5 for a little bit anyway. So let's take a look at the Player's Handbook here, and we'll just get to our character stat creation methods here. And we're just going to read through each of them before we try them out. I'm going to save my opinions on them for the end of the video, but if you want, before I get to my opinion portion, if you want to pause and leave your opinions on each character creation method in the comments, then by all means, please do so. So the first one that we have is method 1. So this is the default version. It is the first option listed, and it's the only one that's not listed under the alternate dice rolling methods. So method one is to roll 3 six-sided dice, and the total shown on your dice is your character's strength score. Repeat this for dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma in that order. This method gives a range of scores from 3 to 18, with the most results in the 9 to 12 range. Only a few characters have scores, high scores are 15 or above, so you should treasure these characters. So that's the default method. That's the version that I used for my goblin test video. Method number 2 is to roll 3d6 twice, noting noting the total of each roll. Use whichever result you prefer for your character strength score, and then you repeat it for each of the other ones. So it's 3d6 twice. Take the better result and assign in the order that you generated the stats in. So it does say that this allows you to pick the best score from each pair, generally ensuring your character does not have any really low ability scores. But low ability scores are not all that bad anyway, which is true. In second edition AD&D, a lot of stats between like the 8, from like 8 to 15 really aren't that dramatically different from one another, so it's not the worst thing in the world to have some low stats. All right, method number 3 is to roll 3d6 6 times, jot down the total for each roll, and then assign the scores to your character's 6 attributes however you want. This gives you the chance to custom tailor your character, although you're not guaranteed high scores. So a lot of classes, actually every class in second edition AD&D does have some sort of prerequisite ability that you have to have a certain value in a particular or several attributes in order to qualify for the class. So being able to assign the stats that you roll in the order that you want makes it easier to be able to play as things like paladins, rangers, druids, and bards. Not that most people wanted to play a second edition bard. Method number 4 is to roll 3d6 12 times and jot down all 12 totals. Choose 6 of these rolls, generally the 6 best, and assign them to your character's abilities however you want. This combines the best of methods 2 and 3, but takes somewhat longer. So yeah, you tend to skew a lot higher in terms of like average ability score with this method, but we'll get to that in a moment. Option number 5 is roll 4 six-sided dice, so 4d6. Discard the lowest die and then total up the remaining 3. Repeat that process 5 more times and assign them however you wish. This is a fast method that gives you a good character, but you can still get low scores. After all, you could roll once on all 4 dice, which I very well probably could. So this is the default method for 3rd edition D&D, 4th edition D&D, and if you use stat rolling for your 5th edition characters, it's the default version for that as well. So I don't want to spoil too much, but that's a character stat creation method that is going to be allowed in my 2nd edition AD&D game. And then we have method number 6, which is kind of interesting. So method number 6 is a way to allow you to tailor your scores more so than any other method, although you're still not guaranteed to have a lot of great attributes. So each ability score starts at 8, and then you roll 7 six-sided dice. You record each of those rolls individually, and then you can add them however you want to that base 8 score to get a number from 8 up to 18. Now, 18 is the absolute max because you cannot get higher than 18 on 3 six-sided dice unless you are somehow cheating. So if you were to add things to an ability score to try to get it to 18, and you would have points left over based on what you roll, anything that would take you in excess of 18 is simply lost. So you do have to be somewhat aware of how you are adding these individual d6s to your attributes so that you try to avoid as much like wasted numbers as possible. So again, it's very interesting. It's in a way to pretty much guarantee that you're going to get an 18 unless you really chunk the rolls. So yeah, it's a very interesting method. So yes, we have 6 different methods for generating our ability scores. And I do have a little table here to sort of keep track of everything. I'm hoping that it will show up well. I do have a light on it here. We'll just turn the lighting down a little bit there. So that should make it a little bit easier to read my horrible, horrible handwriting. So yeah, we're going to do each method now and just sort of see what numbers that we get. Now, this is not really going to be an ultimate way of saying which, version of stat rolling is going to guarantee you the better numbers. I'm only doing one sample for each method, so it's really not enough to create any sort of like statistical analysis. But it's just meant to be kind of fun and just to show you the options, because I already kind of know which methods I'm willing to allow and which ones I'm not willing to allow. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's start with the classic. Obviously, we're going to do these in order. So we're going to go with method number one. So method number one is 3d6, and you assign in the order rolled. So I've got my tables there: strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. So let's see what we can do here. Now, again, keep in mind that most classes will have at least a requirement of a 9 in their primary ability score. So a 9 for the strength for a fighter, a 9 in dex for a thief, a 9 in intelligence for a wizard, and a 9 in wisdom for clerics. Things like paladins and rangers will typically require even higher numbers. The paladin famously requiring a 17 in charisma, with charisma being one of the most useless stats, at least in like these older versions of D&D. So let's see what kind of character class we could qualify for. All right, so we did get a 9 in strength. So that's pretty cool. So we can at least be a fighter. We definitely cannot be a thief, because that is only a 5, which is actually kind of scary. And when they say that you can roll bad on all those dice, they weren't lying. And then we have an 8 for con. This is going to be a pretty crappy set of stats, if I can be honest. I'm writing these in pen though, so they are locked in. Oh my goodness, another 5 for intelligence. This would be a barely functional character, but let's see what we got here. Well, there we go. We do have a 12 in wisdom, so we could technically be a cleric, technically. And then we have a 10 in charisma. So those are some pretty gnarly stats. And I gotta be honest, if someone in my campaign rolled those for their character, I would probably let them re-roll the entire set. And I'm going to do that here just because, again, that's what I would allow. So we see at least an example of how bad it can be. But let's see what we can do this time around. That's a little bit better. We do have an 11 in strength. Dexterity, okay, we're doing a little bit better there. So we got a 12. And there is another 11. So we are falling within the average range now, which is good. There's a good number. So we actually have a 17 intelligence. Wisdom is 12. Those are a lot better. I probably should have done a practice set before I committed to camera. But interesting, we got 12 for wisdom on both sets there. And then we have an 11 for charisma. So yeah, overall, that's a much better character. And even still, like with the 17, that's good, but it's still not that overpowered a character. So with the first set, so with set 1, and I'm not going to do 2 sets with everyone unless I really, like I said, do really poor rolling. So set 1, the classes that we could qualify for would be fighter and cleric, so F and C, and with the second stat, or second set, set 2, we could qualify for any of the core classes. And again, I'm not going to do this for every single set that we roll, but I just thought it'd be interesting to see, using the default method, what classes we would actually be able to qualify for. Now, we won't be able to be a paladin because they do require a 17 charisma and a 13 wisdom. But let's take a look at the ranger. Rangers require 14 for con and wisdom and 13 for dex and strength. So that one, unfortunately, is not available to us. For the wizard, though, we might qualify for potentially for specialist wizards because they do have ability score requirements, but they are all like 15s or 16s and attributes like wisdom, con, and charisma. So we're not going to be able to qualify for anything there. Let's take a look at the druid. That's kind of one of my last hopes here. The druid requires a wisdom of 12, a charisma of 15. So nope, nothing there. And finally, dear God, could I be a bard? And the answer to that is still no. Bards require a 15 charisma. So the only classes that we can qualify for, even with a 17 in intelligence and no other stat lower than 11, the only ones that we can qualify for are the standard classes of fighter, cleric, thief, and mage, which is fine. You still get a pretty good array of classes there, but like I said, it could be better. So let's move on to method number 2. So method number 2 is to roll 3d6 twice, take the best result, and that's going to be our strength. So let's see what we get here. So the first one is only a 6, so we're probably going to do better than that. And we did. We ended up getting a 12. So our strength is going to be 12 as we take the better of the two. For dexterity, we have that's 11, we have 13. And then we have a 7. So again, we're going to take the 13. Con. I guess I'm not thinking. I actually do have 2 sets of dice that I pulled out specifically for this character creation method. So let's actually do that with the 2 different colors adding together. So for con, we have a 9 or we have a 17. So we are definitely going to take the 17 there and actually get some bonus hit points, which is cool. And then for intelligence, we have a 13 and another 9. So we got 9 and 13, so we're going to take the 13. So you can already kind of see a bit of a pattern developing here, at least until this point. So for wisdom, we got a 4, and we have a 9. I've rolled 9s quite a bit, which it is one of the average numbers that you get on 3d6. So we'll go with the 9 wisdom. And then finally, for charisma, we have a 12 and we have a 7. So we have 7 and 12. We're going to take the 12. And there we go. So again, we do have a 17. And then we have 2 13s. We have a 9 and then 2 12s for that method. All right, so the next option is to roll 3d6 6 times and assign them however we wish. So with this setup again, the only classes that we would be able to qualify for would again be fighter, cleric, thief, and mage, because we are still lacking the other attributes that we need in order to be a ranger, to be a paladin, to be a druid, or to be even a specialist wizard. We don't qualify for any of those either. And even the bard is out of reach because we don't have the 15. So classes we can be are fighter, then we got cleric. It's kind of difficult to reach around the tripod here. So then we got thief and mage. So those are the only classes that we qualify for. Let's do the 3d6 6 times and assign them however we wish. So the first result is an 8. Then we have a 7, not off to a great start. And there we have another 8. So again, not looking very good. This might be another reroll situation where 9 to 12 is the average. If the majority of your stats are below that, then I would allow my players to reroll. Here we have a 14, which is not bad. 13. Okay, we're doing a little bit better, and that's what, 5. We need 1 more. And we have a 6. So those are pretty rough numbers. The 14 and 13 aren't bad, but 4 of our 6 attributes fall below the average that you would expect with the 3d6. So I'm actually going to allow a reroll there, which is what I would do for my players. And we'll see if we get, we're already doing better right off the bat here. So we have a 15. There we have an 8. There we have an 11. We have a 14. Another 8. And we have a 12. So this is a set of stats that I would say that, you know, if this is what you roll. If the first set is what you rolled with a 6, a 7, 2 8s, and then a 14 and 13, I would let them re-roll. But with a 15, a 14, a 12, an 11, and 2 8s, we would probably keep those. So I'm actually going to disregard this first set of results here, but then we'll just assign them however we want. So this is where, again, we have to think about what kind of character that we want to play. So we could actually use this to create a specialist wizard, which is probably what I would want to do. So let's just take a look at the specialist wizard, only because they're the only one that requires only 2 attributes. One is like an intelligence of 9 to be a wizard, and then the specialist would require a different, like either wisdom, con, or dexterity. So we can only put a 15. So that limits us to transmutation, abjuration, or conjuration. So let's be a conjurer. So we're going to make just a conjurer with this one. So we're just going to do conj. So we do need a 15 in for conjuration summoning. We need it in constitution. So our 15 is going to go into con. So that's used. Our 14 will go into intelligence because we are a wizard. We want that to be a good stat as well. And then we're just going to put probably 12 into dexterity. It doesn't really do anything for us, but it's still better, I guess, to have a better number there. Wisdom will be 11, and then we're going to have 8s and charisma and strength. So there we go. That's what we have for our assign to taste. Again, the stats aren't the greatest, but we do have a pretty decent mix. And again, you could actually be a specialist wizard. This is the first character creation method that's actually using this small sample size of 1, more or less, per method. This is the first one that's allowed us to be anything beyond just the basic core classes of fighter, thief, cleric, and mage. So really cool that we finally got something. All right, method number 5 is to roll 3d6 12 times and then choose the best 6 results. So I'm going to go back to these to be able to speed up the process a little bit. So we have a 9, an 11, and we have a 5. So we've got 11, 5. That's not bad. That's a 16 and a 13. So we'll go 16, 13. We've got 9 and 3 is 12, and then we have another 5. So guarantee you those 5s aren't going in there. All right, and then we've got, not great here. We have a 9, and then we've got an 8. So that's 8. We need to do this 2 more times. All right, another 9. So we're starting to bottom out here a little bit, it seems, and then we have a 7. All right, and then we have a 13. Oh, and we have a 10. Okay, so we got our 12 numbers. So the next thing to do is just to simply choose the 6 best. So I can tell you right now, we're going to eliminate the 5s off of the board, as well as the 7 and the 8. And yeah, we'll get rid of the 2 9s. So now we do have a little bit that we can kind of work with here. We do have a 16 and a couple of 13s. I still don't think that's going to allow us to qualify for a whole lot beyond just the core classes, but again, we could potentially look at a specialist mage, although the fact that 13 is the next highest after the 16 isn't great. So let's just take a look at the ranger. I think that required 14s. Yeah, so they require 2 13s and 2 14s, so we won't be able to do that. The paladin, again, we need a 17, so that one is just flat out. Let's take a look at the druid, because the druid might be okay. The druid requires a wisdom of 12 and a charisma of 15, so we could qualify for a druid class. And the bard, we can't forget about the bard. The bard has, where are we? So the bard requires a 12 dexterity, a 13 intelligence, and a 15 charisma. So we could be, with this method, we can qualify for bard, druid, and then the core classes. So no ranger or paladin, but we could qualify for basically anything else, including any of the specialist wizard classes if we wanted to, but that would require dedicating your 16 to an attribute that's not the best for the wizard class, so we're going to stay away from that one. But let's go for the druid. So for the druid, we do need a 15 in charisma, so unfortunately we got to put our 16 in there. And then our next highest attribute of 13 will go into wisdom. So we do have our requirements for a druid there now, so that has been met. So that was 16 and 13. We're going to take another 13 and put it into con. And then our 12 will go into strength. And that leaves us with an 11 and a 10. We'll put the 10 in intelligence and the 11 in dexterity. So there we go. So we actually made a druid with this one. So not too bad. We finally, like I said, we're finally actually getting to one of these specialty classes, and with this method, we were able to qualify for 2 of them. But even still, you can see that it's very possible to still get some pretty poor numbers. So even with taking the best 6 out of 12 rolls, we still really didn't end with all that powerful a character, which is interesting. All right, method 5, the tried and true default method for every edition of D&D after 2nd is the 4d6 drop the lowest and assign to taste. So let's see what we've got here. So we already have a 16 off the bat. And we've got a 12. So we got 6, 5, and 1. We dropped the other one. There's a 17. So 6, 6, and 5. We dropped the other 5 because that's one of the lowest numbers. And we have a 16. So 5, 5, and 6. Drop the 3. So already we've got a pretty dang good character here. Of course, I jinx it as soon as I say something, don't I? So that is a 9, which still isn't bad. And then finally, our last roll nets us a 10. So here we go. We can almost qualify for anything, almost anything, except for, I think, basically, I want to say the Ranger's the only class that we can't qualify for using this method, because the Ranger requires 2 13s and 2 14s, and we have 3 attributes that are 13 or above. We don't have 4, so that's kind of limiting us there. But we can be the fighter. Can we be a paladin? Strength 12, con 9, wisdom 13, charisma 17. So yes, with this set of numbers rolled using this method, we can actually be a paladin, and by extension, we can be every other class in the game except Ranger, because Ranger has 4 requirements of 13 or 14. So unfortunately, we can be anything except my favorite class, of course, which is Ranger. So we can be any class that we want. So let's make a gosh dang Paladin. So 17 in Charisma. So two of these characters basically in a row. We've put our best attribute into or best result into our least used attribute. But we've got that. Let's put a 16 into Strength. And what was the other requirement? I think it was Wisdom for the Paladin. Okay, so they have 4 requirements as well. So Strength, Wisdom, and Constitution. So the Wisdom has to be a decent number as well. Con can be a 9 or above. So Wisdom is going to have to be the other 16. And they do get to cast like some clerical spells, so that makes sense. So we can put any of the remaining stats into our con because it just needs to be a 9, but we're gonna put the 12 in there. Intelligence will be 10, and then our dex will be 9. So there we go. That is the best results that we've had so far. And then we've got our final method, which is all attributes start at 8. And then you roll 7d6, record each number separately, and then you can add them to those numbers of 8 until you get up to a maximum of 18. So this one, I really want to try to qualify for the Ranger class. We do need a 2 13s and 2 14s, so that's kind of what we're going to be shooting for here. With our attributes, and I believe the way that it works for the Ranger is Strength and Dex of 13, Con and Wisdom of 14. So I'm just going to put a little 13, and then a 14, and a 14. So that's what we're aiming for, to try to make a Ranger. So we've got our 7 dice, so let's just go ahead and give those a roll and see what we have here. Okay, so we have a 6, so we're just going to go 6, and then we have 5, 5, 4, 4, and then a 2, and a 1. The only number we didn't roll was a 3. All right, so we do need to get up to at least a 13 strength, at least a 13 dex, and then at least a 14 con and wisdom. So let's see what we can do here. So we're going to let's start with the 14s and get those out of the way because they will require the most. So we do have a 6, so let's just go with con. So we'll put the 6 plus the 8. So we'll put our 6 in there. So that gives us 14 off the bat. And I'm going to consider that one to be done but for now, but we may come back to it if we have some other stuff here. All right, so for the 13s, we do have 2 5s, and 8 plus 5 is 13. So for strength, we'll put a 5 in there. And then for dex, we'll put another 5 in there. So those are both of our 5s. Those are gone now. So the only thing we need to do is get up to a 14 wisdom, which we can do by adding 4 to our 8. So that gives us 12. And then we are going to add another 2, which will get us up to our 14. So we still have a 4 left over, and we have a 1 left over. Because strength is important for a fighter type character, if what we're gonna have right now is 8 and 5 so that is our 13. So let's put that in the 4 in there, which brings us up to a 17. And you know what? Let's get our first 18 of the video and put that in there as well. Now that would allow us to qualify, because we are a warrior class, it would allow us to qualify for exceptional strength, which is something that I will talk about a little bit in a later video. But for now, let's just roll to see what our exceptional strength would be. Again, I'll just show you the strength chart really quickly here. So only the fighter classes, the warrior classes, can qualify for exceptional strength. So you have to be a fighter, a paladin, or a ranger in order to qualify for it. But yeah, it is really cool to have. So it says a warrior with 18 is considered to have an exceptional strength. So even the lowest version of an 18 with exceptional strength is mathematically still better than a other character with just a regular straight 18. So let's just roll our exceptional just to see what we got here. And so that is a 30, 3 on the 10s dice and a 0 on the 1s dice. So that will put us in that first category. So we would have a hit probability adjustment of +1 and a +3 bonus to damage, which is not bad. So we've got our strength of 18/30, and then our dex is 13, our con is 14 on the dot, our intelligence is 8, our wisdom is also 14, and our charisma is 8, but we do finally get to be a ranger. So there you go. So those are the different methods that we can have for stat creation in 2nd edition AD&D. So really, when it comes down to it, the question is, which of these would I allow? Because I do want to give my players some options that they can, make the character in a way that will hopefully kind of suit what they want. So the method 4 is definitely going to be in, because that is the default method for every edition of D&D from 2nd edition on. So 3rd edition, 3.5, 4th, and now 5th edition, although 5th edition tends to rely a little bit more on the standard array, but the stat rolling is still 46 6 times, drop the lowest on each one, and assign however you want. Then we have the tried and true roll 3d6 down the line. Whatever you get is the attribute that you have. Just because, the players that are looking to play my AD&D game, some of them may want to create a character with that really old school vibe of, the dice are what they are. So method 1 would also be allowed in my campaign. And I would probably, because I already have a method where you can assign to taste, method 3 is somewhat redundant here because it's 3d6, but you can assign the taste, which is fine. But we already have 46 drop the lowest assigned to taste. So method 3 is not one that I'm really looking to use in my campaign. Method number 2, which is to roll 2 sets of stats and to take the better number. Again, we do have other ways of getting decent numbers here, but I do want to be open to allowing 3 of the 6 methods. So I'm going to leave that one on the table for now. And then method number 4, which is to roll 3d6 12 times and take the 6 best results. Even though we didn't get a great character with it with the rolls that I made, it's still not one that I feel like I would want to have in my game. It just feels like it's a little bit too much in terms of really letting you cherry pick what you can have for your attributes. And I gotta be honest, I think if somebody wanted to play something with a high prerequisite and have a good chance of actually being able to do it, I honestly think method 6, which is the most unconventional of all the methods, which is the every stat starts at 8, you roll 7d6, record each number that you rolled separately, and then you can add them to your character. I think that's one that I would allow as well, just because, again, if somebody wants to play a ranger, it's really hard to do. As you can see, we've rolled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've rolled 9 sets of stats prior to getting to this final method, and none of them would allow us to play a ranger based off of what I did here today. So I think I would still allow this, because even though we do have an 18, and then we got 2 14s and a 13, you're still going to have a couple of stats on the lower end. You're not guaranteed to have a super, high-powered character, because even if you rolled 6s on all 7 dice, which is it's statistically possible but highly improbable, you would still really not have all that great a set of numbers, because you can't go above 18. And you would have, if you added 6 to all of those attributes, you'd have 14s, and then one stat could be an 18, so you could have 118 and all 14s. But, with that, the attribute modifiers, what you really get in 2nd edition AD&D, really even having 5 14s isn't actually that good. So I think I would probably say no to method number 2. And I would allow methods 1, method 5, which is the one that would sort of be the default. A method 1 if you want that old school, like let the dice fall where they may sort of thing. Method 5 if you want just sort of the tried and true standard method for the last 20 plus years. And I would also allow method 6 if you are trying to qualify for something very specific. So those are the ones that I would allow personally. But let me know in the comments below which versions of character creation, stat generation would you allow in your second edition AD&D game, hypothetically, if you were going to run one. And you don't have to allow 3 of the 6. That's perfectly fine. Like, you could just choose your one favorite. But yeah, let me know what you think of the different methods. Have you heard of any of these methods before? And which ones would you actually entertain using in your games? So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed putting it together. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing some more second edition videos in the future, including discussing things like how to understand and use THAC0, the way that the second edition Player's Handbook has it, which is the best way to do it, non-weapon proficiencies and how to make ability checks, as well as things like encumbrance, and just some other minor things like priests, how they access their spells, and how wizards starting spellbook start. So those are videos that I kind of have in the works, which I'm looking forward to. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it's an older version of the game that not a lot of people talk about. So yeah, let me know if you've had any experiences with second edition. Anyway, thank you once again. I really appreciate it. I will see you all next time. Until then, take care.